You're standing in a store aisle, staring at 47 varieties of the same product. Ultra soft, double ply, bamboo infused, dermatologist tested. You grab one, toss it in the cart, and think nothing of it. That's the point. Toilet paper has become so ordinary, so entirely invisible, that most people couldn't tell you when it was invented, who invented it, or why, for most of human history, nobody used it at all. And here's the part nobody talks about. The material you use to clean yourself every single day has driven deforestation, sparked wartime panic, reshaped global supply chains, and quietly divided the world into two opposing civilizations. One that wipes, one that washes. Which one is actually cleaner? Which one is actually saner? The answer to both questions changes more than you'd expect. Welcome to Object Lore, where history hides in plain sight, inside the things you walk past every day without a second thought. Today's object, toilet paper. And before we go further, let's address the assumptions sitting in the back of your mind. You probably think toilet paper is ancient, a basic human technology right up there with fire and the wheel. Something our ancestors sorted out early, before recorded history, before civilization had anything better to argue about. That sounds reasonable. It is entirely wrong. Commercially manufactured toilet paper did not exist until 1857. For the vast majority of human civilization, thousands and thousands of years, people cleaned themselves with whatever was nearby. Leaves, stones, corn cobs, their own hand. The roll sitting in your bathroom right now is a remarkably recent invention, and the story of how it got there is stranger, darker, and more politically charged than it has any right to be. Picture China, 589 AD. A scholar named Yan Jitui writes something historians still cite. He refuses to use paper bearing the names of sages for, as he delicately phrases it, toilet purposes. That single line is the earliest written reference to paper being used for hygiene. By the 14th century, the Chinese imperial court was operating at a different scale entirely. Emperor Hongwu's Imperial Bureau of Supplies manufactured approximately 10 million sheets of toilet paper per year, some perfumed, some measuring 2 feet by 3 feet, produced specifically for the royal household. Paper for cleanliness existed in China centuries before it existed anywhere else. Europe, meanwhile, was not on the same page. Wealthy Romans used a communal sponge on a stick, called a xylospongium, rinsed between uses in salt water or vinegar. Medieval Europeans used wool or pages torn from old almanacs. And then, in 1857, an American entrepreneur named Joseph Gayeti changed the equation entirely. He began selling what he called medicated paper for the water closet, flat, unrolled sheets marketed as a medical product, specifically to prevent hemorrhoids. He printed his own name on every single sheet. The perforated roll as we now recognize it came later, patented in 1891 by Seth Wheeler of Albany, New York. Patent number 459-516. That design, with paper feeding over the front of the roll, remains one of the most contentious debates in households around the world. But the product was still a novelty. The world was about to discover exactly how much it was worth. A U.S. Army field supply depot, somewhere in the Pacific, 1944. The soldiers aren't running low on ammunition. They're running low on toilet paper. Here is the assumption most people bring to this history. Toilet paper is a neutral consumer product, a hygiene item, harmless, something that sits quietly under the sink and waits. That sounds right. It is entirely wrong. During World War II, toilet paper became a formal military logistics priority. Commanders calculated that each soldier required 22 sheets per day to maintain basic sanitation in the field. Supply lines were reorganized to accommodate it. Then, in 1973, Tonight Show host Johnny Carson made a single offhand joke suggesting a toilet paper shortage might be coming. There was no shortage, but within days, Americans had cleared store shelves from coast to coast, producing the very shortage Carson had jokingly predicted. A fiction became a fact through fear alone. And then 2020 proved the same psychology could detonate globally. When COVID-19 lockdowns began, toilet paper disappeared simultaneously from shelves across the United States, the United Kingdom, Australia, and Germany. Researchers at Georgia Institute of Technology concluded that hoarding was driven not by actual supply disruption, but by a collapse in perceived institutional control. A 2021 study in PLOS-1 confirmed it. Hoarding correlated with institutional uncertainty, not with actual scarcity. Toilet paper is a psychological instrument. What happens to those shelves tells you more about a society's relationship with fear than its relationship with hygiene. But that's only half the story. Now step back and look at the map. The United States consumes more toilet paper per capita than any other nation. Accounts suggest around 141 rolls per person per year. The global average is a fraction of that figure. Most of Asia, the Middle East, South Asia, and parts of Southern Europe don't rely on dry paper at all. They use water, bidets, handheld sprayers. And when researchers began comparing the two approaches scientifically, the results were not ambiguous. A 2020 study published in the Journal of Water and Health concluded that water-based anal cleansing is microbiologically more effective than dry wiping alone. Japanese medical researchers have documented that widespread bidet adoption correlates with reduced rates of urinary tract infections in elderly populations, a finding that has influenced hospital bathroom design across Japan. Toto introduced the washlet, Japan's electronically controlled bidet toilet seat, in 1980. By recent estimates, it is now present in roughly 80% of Japanese households. The United States, the country that commercially launched toilet paper as a product category, has a bidet adoption rate of under 5%. Here's the dry aside. The nation that most aggressively exports the idea of modern hygiene to the world also has the lowest adoption rate of the method that research suggests works better. The rest of the world washed. America kept selling paper. And the paper industry made sure that equation stayed exactly where it was. There's one more layer to this story that belongs firmly in the present. That roll in your bathroom, the one that costs almost nothing, that you use without thinking, cost the planet something that does not appear on the price tag. A report from the Natural Resources Defense Council, titled "The Issue with Tissue," found that major U.S. tissue brands, Charmin, Quilted Northern, Angel Soft, source wood pulp from Canada's boreal forests, among the most carbon-dense ecosystems on Earth. These forests are not replanted at the rate they are harvested. Bamboo-based and recycled fiber alternatives exist and sit on those same store shelves. Most consumers don't switch. The same urgency that cleared those shelves in 2020 is entirely absent when the threat is slower and quieter. We panic buy when we feel the loss immediately. We absorb the slower costs without noticing. So the next time you reach for that roll, standing in a bathroom, half asleep, not thinking, know what you're holding. A product invented in 1857, adopted by habit, not by proof, rejected by most of the world, hoarded in moments of collective fear, quietly linked to the degradation of ancient forests. It did not replace something inferior. It replaced nothing that needed replacing, in ways we are still accounting for. Every civilization reveals itself in what it chooses to throw away. If this object surprised you, wait until you hear about the next one. What everyday object do you think has the most hidden history? Drop it in the comments. We read every single one. This is Object Lore. The history of the world is hiding in plain sight. Until next time.